Yo, what is up, YouTube? Before we begin, I'd like to sincerely apologize for my unplanned absence. I'm sorry, I haven't been making content. My school just got started, so I had to focus on my schoolwork, and that's my #1 priority. But now I'm back, and I've secured an interview with the highest rated accounting professor at Rutgers Business. I've secured an interview with the highest rated accounting professor at Rutgers Business School. He's gonna tell you how to break into the accounting industry, how to be successful in the field, ins and outs of the accounting field. So let's go talk to her.
Hi, come on
Professor.
in. Nice to see you.
Before we start our interview, I'd like to thank Professor O'Rourke for agreeing to be the first guest of my show. And Professor, could you briefly introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Sarah O'Rourke. I've been at Rutgers for about 11 years, first part-time and then full-time now teaching accounting. I went to Rutgers, I graduated in 2003 with a bachelor's. I have a master's in accounting. I still hold my CPA license, so I love Rutgers, I love teaching here.
So I'd like to start this interview by asking you, when did you figure out you wanted to go into accounting and why accounting?
Okay, so, when I started at Rutgers, I didn't have any idea really what I wanted to major in, so I just came in kind of open-minded. I don't know exactly at what point I decided accounting, but I really liked the idea of the business school.
Okay.
So, and once I started to look at that, back then there were 5 majors, and I think I considered finance and accounting, but just accounting seemed the most interesting to me, and that's what I went with.
Okay. And I know that you went to school here at Rutgers.
Yeah.
So what did you do to get involved on campus? Did you do something accounting related or something completely different?
I must say I was not great about the extracurricular.
Okay.
I focused mostly on my grades. You should get involved in extracurricular because that's really good stuff to have on your resume. I did do a little bit of tutoring through the learning centers, and I tutored at a high school, so I always enjoyed that. But I should have been more involved in extracurricular activities. I highly recommend that. I just, like I said, I was focused on grades and kind of introverted when I was in college, so I probably didn't do as much as I should.
Okay, thank you for telling us that. So my next question is, I've seen a lot of students who are freshmen and sophomores who have already decided that they want to major in accounting,
Right.
but they're not really sure how to start preparing for it because a lot of the internship opportunities are only open to juniors and seniors.
Okay.
So what do you think they can do to start preparing to go into the accounting field?
Well, I think any work experience is good. Obviously, start taking the right classes. Some firms do have, though, mentor programs or shadow programs for sophomores. I know the firm I worked at, Wilkin & Guttenplan, they used to have a shadow program where I think was open to sophomores where you could come in and just shadow a partner for a day and see what they did for work. So a lot of firms, I think, do have opportunities like that you could look into.
I see.
That they bring to different career days or that they advertise on their website. But any work experience is good. So if you can try to do something even bookkeeping or accounting related, even if it's not the official accounting firm internship, any work experience where you get customer service experience or any type of bookkeeping or just a job and working with people, that's good too.
So it's not the end of the world if you don't get an internship?
No, it's definitely not.
Okay.
Especially early on because, for example, me, I think I interned at an accounting firm as a junior, but I lifeguarded at a day camp the first 2 years of college.
I see. So I know that there are different types of accounting. I know there's financial accounting, managerial, forensics accounting. So could you tell us what kind of opportunities are available within the field?
So that's one of my favorite things about the accounting major is that there are so many different things you can do with it. A lot of people take accounting and they think about the CPA exam and they think about public accounting, and that's definitely one option. So public would mean doing audit or tax for a public firm. And a lot of people look at that, but that's not for everybody. So then there's industry, private accounting, where you might go work in the accounting department of a company. And that could be any range. Again, you mentioned financial or managerial, so that could be bookkeeping, which is the financial end, or it could be managerial type stuff where you look at different, costing and different business decisions. Forensic, again, that could be working for the FBI. You could work for a government, because state and local governments have accounting departments too, right? They need accounting records, so you can go into that. You can work for the IRS and do tax-related things. So there's a ton of options, which is it's something I think is really cool, because if you start out in public and it's not for you, you have a ton of different things you can do. So there's different pace and a different field for everybody.
So I know a lot of people who want to pursue accounting want to take the CPA exam. And I saw on your LinkedIn page that you passed all the parts of CPA exam on your first try. So do you think you can give advice for those who want to take the CPA exam?
Honestly, the CPA exam, it's about time. So I took it a while back. I passed it in 2003. So you had to sit for all 4 sections at the same time. It was a bit of a different test. But it really boils down to, it's not that any of the material is really, really hard, because it's everything that you learned in school, but it's just so much material. So I think the guidance back then when I took it was, and this was again to take all 4 parts, but to pass you needed to put in about 400 hours of studying. So now you can take it 1 section at a time. So you break that down, but it's really about just putting in the time and effort to study the material. It's a lot of time. I highly recommend a review course, because that organizes the material, it breaks it down, they give you motivation and focus. It's achievable, but again, it's just about putting in the time and making sure you set aside the time before you get maybe too busy with work or other things. So try to get it done as quickly as possible, but it's achievable for sure. It's just, again, it's the time and the effort, I think.
I hope her advice helps you guys and pass the CPA exam. So when a lot of students decide their major, they look at how much money they could make. So could you tell us if accounting is a lucrative field to get into?
It definitely is. I don't know, specific firms or companies, I don't know specifics about salary, but it's definitely a good paying job no matter where you go. And I know different places I worked, especially public accounting, I always felt like the raises were very good. I feel like you work very hard, but I think you're rewarded for that. I always thought that the raises were more than you would see in a typical job. So it's definitely a good field in terms of pay.
Okay, because from what I've heard, the big 4 firms for the entry-level positions, they don't really pay that much. So some students don't want to go into accounting because of that. So what's your opinion?
Guess it's all relative, because I know I started way back when, so it could be that entry level is not that much, because there is a lot of turnover, that people stay for a year or 2 and then they leave. So it might be that the good compensation means you have to be there for a couple of years. But when I started, I felt like my salary was better than most of my friends, maybe non-business majors. So again, if you compare it to other things, like maybe certain finance jobs or, becoming a doctor, then maybe it's less. But I think just on average, typical jobs, I think it's better. But I would say maybe in public accounting, they might not pay anything exorbitant the first year, but if you stick around, that's where I saw increases once I had been there for a few years. I thought the raises were very good and bonus and things like that.
Okay. So I'm assuming that to get raises, you have to be good at your job.
You have to work hard.
Right. So
but that goes for any field, right? Yeah.
So what skills or traits do you need to be successful in the accounting field?
Honestly too, it's not just specific to accounting, but just good people skills. Because if, for say, you go into public accounting, you have to go out to clients. You have to be able to talk to clients. People want to see that you're dependable, that you're hardworking. Understand the big picture, so that if you do work, you can look at it and maybe recognize where you've made a mistake and correct it, or just, attention to detail. But I think those are skills that any job, right? And that comes with time, right? But people skills are important. I think that's why they look on your resume for extracurricular stuff, because good grades are important, but they also want to see that you can talk and interact and work on an audit team and talk to a client.
I see. Okay. I'd like to talk to you about your transition into teaching. I know that you've been in the accounting industry for over a decade before you transitioned to teaching. So can I ask why you wanted to switch to teaching?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I never planned to go into teaching, although I did always, for example, in public, I always liked doing staff training and mentoring and things like that. It was really never my plan to go into teaching. I guess so 10 or 11 years ago, I kept in touch with a couple of professors here that I used to work with, and they happened to have a Saturday section of financial accounting that needed teaching, and they asked me if I wanted to do it. So it was just, at the time I was working full-time as an accountant, it just seemed like a cool opportunity, so I took it, but then I really liked it. So I worked full-time as an accountant, and then I would teach here just maybe one class evenings and weekends. I did that for a long time. And then, I have kids, so I was kind of home with them for a bit, but I still kept the part-time teaching.
Okay.
But then I liked this so much that I've just stayed here, and then eventually now I'm full-time. So, but again, I kind of lucked into it, but I really, really liked it once I started.
Okay. So I'm sure there are other people in the field who want to go into teaching.
Yeah.
So do you think you can share some advice for those who want to switch their career to teaching?
I think, there are lots of opportunities. I've always enjoyed the mentoring and the tutoring, so you'd want to maybe get experience with something like that. You need a master's to teach here in terms of just the undergraduate. So that's something to consider. You do need a master's to teach at a college, but there's lots of teaching jobs available anywhere. So if you enjoy, mentoring, teaching, again, it was never my plan, but once I tried teaching a class, I just really liked it.
Is there something you miss about working in the accounting field?
I really enjoy the bookkeeping aspect, so I've always enjoyed that. But there are other opportunities. For example, I'm the treasurer for my kids, their elementary school PTA, and so I do the bookkeeping for that. So I still keep a hand in it.
Okay.
But yeah, I do miss just working with numbers and that. But you get that here. You're teaching it in a class, so it's different. But I love it. It's a good place to be.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you know, but on Rate My Professor, you're one of the highest rated professors.
Well, that's good.
So I want to ask, is there something special about your teaching method that students really like?
I think students, I don't know, but I think students like because I'm approachable. So my thing is I never want anyone to feel stupid about asking a question because we're here to learn. So I think students like that because when you're sitting in class and you don't quite get it and you're afraid to speak up, then you're never going to get it.
Right.
So I always want people to feel comfortable asking questions. So I try to be really approachable. And, I try to break things down and explain it, right? You have to think about how someone's thinking about it that's never seen it before. I like to use handouts and things like that. So again, I guess over the years I've gotten good at explaining things. But again, I think being approachable, maybe that's why.
Okay. So I know there are a lot of students who want to take your section for accounting classes.
Yeah.
Do you think you can give advice on how to do well in your class?
Accounting is about time and effort. I always say that you should try to think about the big picture. And this goes not just for my class, but any class. So try to think about the big picture. So not just, memorize the entry or memorize the format of the income statement, but think about why are we recording it? Why are we recording it this way? What does the income statement tell me? Always try to think about the big picture of what you're doing and the why, because then you're going to get more out of the class. And when you really understand that, I think, again, because if you just memorize, that's only going to get you so far. And you learn this very quickly when you start working, that first job or internship, that, just memorizing it doesn't serve you that well because there are going to be things that happen that you didn't anticipate, or it's not organized in a certain way, right? You kind of have to know what to look for and go out and find the answer. So again, just in accounting or any other class, try to think about the big picture, like the why. Try to really understand what you're doing rather than just memorizing it for the test and forgetting it. And I try to do that in class, bring in examples, but you'll get more out of the class because you're going to forget that stuff that you just memorized for the test. But if you get the big picture, right, you'll take it with you. So I think that's good advice.
So would you recommend to students that they should do the suggested homework problem?
Yes, I do highly recommend the suggested homework. I know from years of experience I get, you put it out there, but all the resources are there. And some people maybe don't need it, but that's how you learn, right? Is to do the practice. You have to put in the time. So I do recommend. Again, accounting is more time consuming than the typical introductory class, and that's tough. But again, the more time you put in, it's just like studying for the CPA, right? If you don't put in the time, you're not going to pass. So.
And lastly, I would like to ask you if you could share some advice to aspiring accountants or those who want to go into the accounting industry.
Just general advice. Again, I think the big picture thing, like I said in the class, is good. But just when you're going into a field, it's just like accounting. You know, a lot of times it's confusing. I know I felt that way in school, that it was very confusing. I felt like I was always behind my peers, that I didn't know. Everyone else seemed to know about the next round of interviews and I didn't know. So don't be afraid to reach out to your instructors for help on advice about, you know, CPA exam, anything, right? Interviewing, we're always here and happy to talk. And then just in general if you're talking about accounting specifically, know that there are a lot of different options. Don't feel like you have to take the CPA exam or that you have to become a CPA. It's a great field, but like we were saying before with accounting, there's so many jobs. If you think about, every company has an accounting department and they need accountants. Every government, every state, local. So there's a ton of different types of things you can do with accounting. So don't feel like if you look at this and it doesn't work or you're not happy, don't be afraid to explore your options. Don't feel like you have to pursue a CPA if you think you'd rather go work for a state government. So there's a lot of options. So don't be afraid to ask for advice or help or questions, and just know that you have a lot of options. If you find that first job and you don't love it, you're not stuck with it.
I hope her advice helps. She's a professional, so I'm sure she knows the best advice. So I hope it helps all of you that are watching this video. And I'd like to thank Professor O'Rourke for being in this interview.
Yeah,
I'm sure this will be very helpful. And yeah.
Thank you.